I filmed in these woods many times for my DJI videos, including the original Mavic Pro. And this is my fourth time here for this video. And the first one was back in late October last year. So why has it taken me so long? And why have I had to come back 4 times? Well, let me explain. As you can see, I like to fly my drones slowly, smoothly, often very low, but not always. I'm no speed demon, it's probably why I've never got into FPV, although I really still would like to try it. I just like to get cinematic style shots with my drones, and I don't use that phrase lightly, but I can, a dolly and track, which is what this would be, crane shots, jib shots. And I was first able to do that with the Mavic Pro, with tripod mode. And it just changed the way that I use drones completely. And then they removed it. Tripod mode limits the vertical and horizontal speed to a maximum of 1 meter a second. And they replaced it with something called Cine mode, which is 5 meters a second maximum speed. And their social media and their customer service insisted it was the same thing, just renamed. But clearly, 5 meters a second and 1 meter a second are not the same. It was the Air 2S, which was the drone that really made me miss tripod mode, because it was so good. So I made a video after the review about making my own slow sticks to get that slow control back, and also diffusion filters because the image was still over sharpened, and they both worked really well. Near the end of last year, they released a couple of firmware updates which made the need for having slow control sticks unnecessary. Diffusion filters popping up everywhere after that video, but also they brought out some firmware that gave you control not just over your sharpness, but over noise reduction, which is very important on their drones because both of them can be quite aggressive. The problem is, these 2 firmware updates, they're not on the same drone. One's on the Mavic 3 series and one's on the Mini 3 Pro. And really, they both need to be on all of their drones.
Losing tripod mode was a big deal for many. Like the over-sharpening of the image, it became something I kept begging DJI to fix. It was when they released the Mavic 3 in late 2021 with the 5 meters a second Cine mode, it was clear this was something that they weren't going to do. Begging wasn't working, does it ever? So I decided to try something else. At the end of my 2-part review, I launched a petition to not just get tripod mode back to all the DJI drones that were missing it, but make it better by making it a user adjustable top speed instead. Much to my surprise, a few months later DJI told me that they had agreed to the petition, but they couldn't tell me anything more than that. No time frame, no model confirmation, so every month after that I kept on asking them what was happening. Then in October last year, DJI asked me to sign an NDA, and this turned out to be for another version of the Mavic 3, the Classic, and it would feature exactly what I'd asked for, a user adjustable speed setting that could be set as low as the 1 meter a second tripod mode. So when I received the Classic, I rushed out to see if it was really true.
This is my first time flying the Mavic 3 Classic, which is the Mavic 3 without the top camera and for less money. So not a lot that's new about it, apart from this is the first drone to have something which I've been desperate to have for a number of years. It's the feature that I campaigned for off the back of my Mavic 3 review a year ago, and that is to bring back tripod mode, well, to particularly bring back and have a maximum speed setting in there, controllable Cine mode, as opposed to what they gave us when they replaced tripod mode with a maximum speed of 5 meters a second, which is not slow. And this is lovely. I set it all to 1 meter a second, and I'm so happy that it's back. I don't know why they ever took it away. And thank you to everybody who signed the petition, because without you guys, I wouldn't be standing here right now. I'd be back at home probably, in the warm, in the dry, with the cats. So that piece of camera was put out as a short. I never got around to finishing the video because I'd done all this filming and then found out that it had been added to the Mavic 3 II, and I hadn't said any of that on camera, and the stuff I said on camera was not necessarily correct. So that kind of screwed things up. And I also needed to get more information about when it was going to come to other drones, because the petition was not for the Mavic 3 alone, even though that's when it started. I mean, even the image is of the Mavic Air 2. So they told me that the petition was successful in May last year. Was it? Was it though?
I've asked DJI numerous times over the past few months to please let me know what was happening with this new Cine mode. Was it going to be added to all the other drones? But I, again, couldn't get any information out of them. That was until last week when I said to them, I have to put this video out. I cannot wait any longer. Please give me something positive to say so I could let people know. Because I told them it was coming. So they said that it's going to definitely come to the Mini 3 Pro, but they couldn't tell me when. But they also said they had no plans to give it to any of the other drones, including the Air 2S and the new Mini 3. So really, the petition wasn't strictly successful, it was only partially successful, and I really did feel pretty let down when they told me this.
At the moment, the only way I can get that really lovely sort of control is either use the sticks that I made in my Air 2S video, props, stay there, or these commercially available ones, the Cine sticks, and I do make them for the DJI RC and the RC Pro. I haven't got them though, but this really helps. But I'd rather not have to use it. I'd rather just have the firmware in the drone, use my DJI RC or the RC Pro, and just have that nice controllable speed. The problem is with having slow sticks rather than mine or the Cine sticks is that being able to go fast is not possible because of the resistance. And that's why being able to dial in your speed is so important.
On the positive side, at least, we do have this new Cine mode. It exists and it's on the Mavic 3 line. And it's better than I'd hoped for, as you can set the speed parameters separately, ascent, descent, and horizontal, right down to 1 meter a second. And that's not just limited to the Cine setting. You can program normal and sport to have their own maximum speeds and just flick between them using the switch on the controller. It's now so much easier and safer to get those lovely shots that I love to use my drones for, really helping with my obsession with flying backwards through anything that's there.
Sometimes it is worth just flying forward and reversing it, because you sometimes get disturbance of like leaves and stuff, and as long as there's nothing giving away the fact you are reversing the shot, it's absolutely fine to do, you know, like people talking or something. Being able to dial in my speed settings like this is way better than tripod mode. It's an absolute joy to use, apart from one situation where it doesn't work, which it really needs to still work in, and that's when it's tracking me. So now that I am I love using spotlight mode because it gives me an easier way to keep myself nice and perfectly in frame. But the problem is that yeah, the settings don't work. You can switch out of it and back in again normal, and then back into Cine, but nothing happens. I can understand for the autonomous modes where it needs to change speed to keep up with you, but this is a mode where you are in control, and it's awful. But I didn't realise because I don't use this drone much. I use the Mini 3 Pro because it's my favourite drone. Is it the best drone I've got? No. But the image is really good, and I can fly it in so many places. But yeah, this we need to still have slow control on our spotlight and on our POI, without question. Anyway, if I click out of it, I'm slow again. Much better.
So this bothered me so much I had to go back a 5th time to double check things, as I just don't remember the Mavic 3 being this wild in spotlight mode before. In a much more open space, you can really see how different it behaves when I go to start tracking myself with spotlight. It's reacting and going faster than the old normal speed, but not quite sport mode. As you can see, the speed has gone past 10 meters a second, which is 36 kilometers an hour, 22.4 miles an hour. And I am still in Cine mode that I programmed as 1 meter a second maximum speed. I couldn't compare this to the old firmware as it wasn't downloadable, so I got out the Mini 3 Pro, which doesn't have the new slow control mode, just the Cine mode, which is at 5 meters a second top speed. And when I engaged spotlight mode, it continued to react like Cine mode in its controls. It did go over that 5 meters a second, but not by much. When you're in that lovely slow control of what I had the Mavic 3 set to and engage spotlight, it's incredibly jarring and potentially dangerous. You've been so used to pushing the sticks a certain amount to move the Mavic 3, and now suddenly it reacts completely differently and it's 10 times faster. This has to be an oversight on DJI's part, surely. It's made spotlight way harder to use than it was before. We have that ability to set our max speeds. We have the ability to put normal to a different one, which is what I had. I had it at 5 meters a second. So if you are using spotlight and it does maintain a very slow speed that you had in Cine mode and it cannot keep up with the subject, then I can simply change it. I have the control and I've taken it away. If they're going to give us that lovely slow control, they need to make sure we can still use it in spotlight mode. So please DJI, please fix this.
Whenever I make these videos and have these long piece of cameras of me talking to the drone, I always get asked, how did you do the audio? Why can't we hear the drone? Well, the drone is still there. I can hear it. There's just a number of key things you need to do. You need to have a microphone nice and close, which is what I've got here, which is my Sanken COS 11 on a Tentacle Track E recorder. And then the rest of it is common sense. The closer you have the drone to you, you're going to hear it, obviously. Right now, it's probably about 3 meters away from me. So not far, not too close. The sound is consistent, the audio is consistent, which means noise reduction can work really well with this. And I use Isotope's RX9 and it does a fantastic job. How strong you want it to be, that's up to you. Depends how loud the drone is. The closer you are, the more you hear the drone, the harsher the noise reduction can be, and then it can start sounding awful. If you can find that right balance, then great. But just remember, if the drone is moving closer to you, like it has in a number of pieces of cameras, then that amount of noise reduction is going to change. So you're probably going to have it at the higher point. But it sounds a little bit too unnatural, a bit too artificial. So that's why you add in some sound. You add in some natural sound, some ambience that I have loads of in my library, and maybe even some footsteps too. Easy enough to record. Just use your phone.
I'm sure you've noticed the Cinematch graphics in the bottom right of most of the shots. This is an incredible plugin for Premiere, DaVinci Resolve and Final Cut Pro 10 to convert one camera color science to match another one, and it's incredible. Along with their other plugin filmconvert nitrate, they are the sponsor, the perfect sponsor of this video. As I've been choosing in DJI D-Log, I select it in the effects window, then I can either turn it straight into Rec 709 or to another camera's log profile. So if I want my colours of the Mavic 3 to look like an Arri Alexa Mini, I can, or a Canon C70, the Sony Venice, the Fuji X-H2S. You get the idea. The main reason you would do this is if you are using more than one brand or even model of camera and wanted them to match perfectly. It center matches the source camera to the target camera, then applies a color science and the log of your choice. The amount of different camera models and log profiles for each is huge, and there's also superb color correction tools within the plugin. You don't have to change your new log to Rec 709, you can keep it like that and then use your favorite LUT for that camera. Plus, of course, you can use it with filmconvert nitrate to get the film stock look that you want. And I've used filmconvert since it was launched 11 years ago, and then its follow-up nitrate. I've talked about it countless times, and I use it on pretty much every project. Both of these are essential plugins for my editing. Using the link in the description, you can download a free trial and also use it to get 10% off both of them. And they've asked me to let you know that there's going to be some big updates coming to filmconvert nitrate later this year, but they haven't told me what. You may recognise this little black and white cat if you've seen my Mini 3 Pro review, which was filmed in Skiathos, Greece.
Severus! Hello. Hi.
Severus, or Sevi for short, has also featured in many of my other videos, going back almost 5 years, and is also one of the main characters in my film Sharmalipi, the most personal film that I've ever made. So yes, as you can tell, she lives with me and the other cats now in England since June when I adopted her. How and why this happened is not a story for this video. I'll tell it in a dedicated one at some point on my One Man 5 Cats channel. There are a number of new features and improvements to 3 since my review, as well as 3 Classic.
With the review pack that DJI gave me for this drone, one of the things that they are really going for with this is for the people who had the Mavic 2 Pro who didn't upgrade because they didn't need maybe the telephoto part, certainly didn't need the Cine part, but didn't want to give up tripod mode.
It has all the features of the normal 3, just without the 7x telephoto top camera. If you buy it with the standard controller, the price difference between the two is about £330. Is it worth spending that extra money to get the second camera though? I would say yes, as the creative potential it offers you is definitely worth it. I've captured some wonderful shots using that camera, which are impossible with any other drone. They've also improved the image given it manual exposure settings, 24, 25p frame rates, raw photo capture, and even the ability to use spotlight and POI with it. There's still no D-Log or 10 bits with it, so it's sadly only the normal color profile. So whilst what you shoot with it isn't going to match your main camera, what it does offer you creatively definitely makes it worth the money. What has also helped the telecamera is these filters, which I asked Freewell if they could make back when I first used the Mavic 3 in late 2021. Every other ND filter for it covers both cameras, which doesn't make much sense as the top camera needs much more light than the main one. That's why these filters are split. The main camera ND is 3 stops stronger than the tele one. These are essential if you use a top camera regularly.
One of my biggest gripes in my original 2-part Mavic 3 review was the way that the 2 resolutions didn't match image-wise, 5.1K and the 4K. Slight magenta, or more magenta in one of them, and then the 4K had more noise reduction, substantially more noise reduction than the 5.1K. I don't know how much was in the 5.1K, it's going to have something, but nowhere near as much. Now they did tweak things with a firmware update, which evened out the magenta, but the noise reduction issues have stayed the same. I mean, right now I'm in 4K, and it's better for me for face shot anyway. And you're not going to do this with a drone, are you? Anyway, but it loses so much of the texture and the clarity of the shots. It just looks too clinical. Let me go back to 5.1K so you can see. It's my favourite way of shooting. Because the 4K is oversampled from 5.1K, you are going to have a slightly cleaner image anyway. But that's not what's going on, it is noise reduction. Too much noise reduction. Really, you want to have total control, the ability to turn it off.
I did some quick covered lens tests to see what the noise was looking like with the two resolutions. And also between the H.265 and H.264 codecs, which basically look the same, and the ProRes ones, which are thankfully now available in the Cine model in LT and 422, not just in HQ. Now this is extreme pixel peeping, as I brought up exposure by 5 stops in post so we can see the noise, so don't freak out. Hopefully YouTube will be kind with its compression so you can see this. Very disappointingly, what I saw in December 2021 is still happening in February 2023. Nothing matches. And the cause of this? Noise reduction. The luma and chroma strengths are all over the place. And strangely, it's not even consistent across the whole frame. The center of the image seems to be stronger than the rest. The least processed by far is the 5.1K ProRes. In the original Mavic 3 firmware, the 4K ProRes didn't have this noise reduction. It was added with the first firmware update in December 2021. It's much harder to see the noise in the HLG and especially the normal profile due to their gamma curves hiding much of the noise in the blacks. I've had to push them much more in post to show you this. HLG does have more noise reduction in 4K, but not on the same scale as the other profiles. In normal, absolutely, it's definitely much stronger in 4K. And here again you can see it's the center of the frame that has that heavy noise reduction. So strange. Comparing the H.265 5.1K and 4K, which is what I used to shoot my piece to camera with, the one just before this, you can see why my skin looked like it had a smoothing filter on it in 4K. So, what can be done to help this? Well, we need to have control of the noise reduction. You know, make it a feature in the app, along with sharpness, like, you know, another drone has now, just not this one. And until they add this to the Mavic 3 line, the 4K is always going to look inferior, substantially inferior to the 5.1K, and it's nothing to do with the resolution.
So just stick to 5.1K then, because you won't have that issue. Now, if you want to shoot at 60 frames per second, you need to drop the 4K, but mostly it's the autonomous modes, the tracking, the spotlight mode only works in 4K. The problem is we don't have the slow control either in those. So you can see my thing, you might see actually why I really want them to fix this. When it comes to the Mini 3 Pro, that one had some serious issues with both noise reduction and over sharpening. But thankfully that was addressed and now it looks so much better.
I love this little drone, but the image from it initially had some very frustrating quirks. If you shot at certain frame rates, or ISOs, then your footage could really suffer. By adding the ability to adjust your sharpness from -2 to +2, and noise reduction from -2 to 1, suddenly you could shoot in all the frame rates and even up to the maximum of 3200 ISO without the image turning to mush. Well, as long as you turn the noise reduction down to the minimum. Many cameras don't even have noise reduction control. My Sony Alphas don't have this ability, only my FX cameras do. So it's a very welcome addition.
The best way to see which is the best settings for noise reduction and sharpness, well, is to do it in a control setting. Not here. Go to my Catio.
To cut to the chase, I personally recommend setting the drone to -2 and -2. Now this won't be to everyone's taste as it will require some work in post, but the results are worth it. If you shoot in higher ISOs, I still advise keeping the noise reduction setting low. The image will just turn to mush when you go to 0 and 1 when that ISO is pushed up. I use Neat Video for my noise reduction as it has the most fine-tuning ability out there. I rarely add any additional sharpening to be honest, but if you feel the need to, then do it. One of my best friends, Ruth, was filming for Channel 5 in London when her cameraman's drone had a bit of a disagreement with a tree. So she called me up to see if I could help. Luckily, I was editing a video for my One Man 5 Cats channel, and thankfully my Mini 3 Pro batteries were charged up. I shot all of this at -2 with Cine, and I was very happy with the results. Some of it was 25p in the HQ mode, and some of it was 50p in the 50p mode. Yeah. I really was not expecting DJI to add this in Mini 3 Pro, because I'd asked them to, as it would solve the image issues that it had. If only they could do the same for poor old 3. I think the chances of them giving it to the Air 2S and older drones are slim to none, given what they said about them not adding the new Cine mode to those ones. Three has become a much better drone since my two-part review in late 2021.
One of my favourite new features is the firmware, came out in December, is cruise control. So I get the speed I want it to be, I press my button which I programmed for that, which is C2, and now that speed is locked, like cruise control. I can still move the drone up and down, I can still do my movements, but it's just the speed is the same.
If you try to go faster or slower than what he set it to, it's not going to work. You'll need to first disengage cruise control, then engage it again when you are at your new speed. Here's a very important warning though, when you're using this feature. When you normally let go of your control, the drone stops, right? Not in cruise control. It's going to keep on moving until you turn it off.
Like that.
The powerful waypoints feature, a big favourite for many with the Mavic 2 Pro, has finally arrived for video and photo to 3. Before it was just for hyperlapse. Waypoints let you set your drone to follow a predetermined route, defining the speed, gimbal angle, and so many other parameters. This can then be saved and you can repeat the exact thing again and again and again over many years if you want to. My example is as basic as you can possibly get, but there's loads of great tutorials on YouTube which go into loads of detail. Whilst we don't have a middle ground profile like the Cine, we do now have HLG, and it looks pretty good. D-Log ISO can now go a stop higher to 1600. The maximum of 800 before was just silly. Even more so because my pre-production 3 went to 6400 ISO and it looked great. When shooting nighttime urban areas, D-Log is the way to go. Unless you are in a brightly lit area, then 1600 isn't really going to cut it, I'm afraid. But there is a night mode. And I've seen lots of very excited people talking about this online. But it's pretty much normal picture profile with incredibly heavy noise reduction. Up to 6400 ISO, it is usable. It doesn't have much of a dynamic range, and I would add some film grain on there to make it look a little less plasticky. But if you get a 6400 ISO, then it's mushy McMushville. Too mushy for me. Hey, maybe you like it mushy, not me. 3 has improved a hell of a lot since my original review just over a year ago. Now, if DJI can put in that essential noise reduction sharpness control that we have in the Mini 3 Pro, and that lovely new tripod mode, put in all the drones that are missing them, then I can finally stop moaning at you. I know it would make Luis a very happy man.
So DJI, I don't expect you to put every feature in every drone, but the key things, the control and the sharpness and noise reduction. Please, please. I'll leave you with something which makes you a little bit sick. I'm going home, the cats need me. I think I've got it all this time.